Hello, Breakfast Club, Sister Danger here. As you can see, I am nowhere near being in a household or some other comfortable place. This is actually my fairy glen. There's one of my cats. That's my fluffy brother. I'm actually in Southern Oregon right now for a 2-weekend event, and so I only have a very limited time today. Being out in the middle of the woods, and my phone is at 30%. It's the only way I have to make a video, and plus I have about 20 minutes before some of my friends come and collect me, and we're going to have spaghetti for dinner. So, anywho, I wanted to try to make a little bit of a response though today. See, I even got to writing down notes this morning, right before other things, just before it basically became 1,000 degrees. It's supposed to be over 100 tomorrow. It's really quite warm down here. So, but I wanted to first say thank you to Brock for his response to my response, and now his response to his response to my response to his original. And, for taking the time to be a little more elaborative on the thoughts that you have, Brock, about this particular topic. You might find yourself somewhat surprised that we probably agree on a great number of things. So I wanted to try to make a response to this, right? In the spirit of good conversation. And so I wrote down some notes, and then from there I'm just going to kind of have to wing it off the top of my head the best I can, because I don't really have the ability to go back and pick reference points in the video right now. So I apologize that this can't be as articulate as I want it to be. So the first thing I will say though is that you are correct. I am not an open borders person. I do believe in having established borders, and I could go into why that is. I think that your door analogy that you used was relatively accurate and rather in line with my own thinking. This was one of the, I didn't even get to writing this down in my notes, but this was one of the things that you said that I really wanted to touch on. But first, before I do that, don't I sound like Ben Shapiro, for Christ's sake? Before I do that, I want to say that I almost am getting the impression that there are different arguments that are going on here. And perhaps because, like you were saying, it's an emotionally charged issue, perhaps because, the media presents it to us all the way that it does, many aspects of this whole conversation are convoluted with one another. And, so I don't think, I agree with you that I don't think that anybody is particularly out there to purposefully see, some people are actually like that, but by and large, I don't think it's like a coordinated plan of attack to see the demise of a whole people or anything silly like that. And I guess I think I feel like I have a better idea of maybe what you were trying to say in your original video that I responded to. So I definitely agree with the notion that you have a moral right to defend, and you used the door analogy. If you have a house, and somebody comes and tries to trespass beyond your door or the lines of your property, fair people going by, so tries to trespass beyond the lines of your property, that you have a moral right to be able to defend your own property, to safeguard that which is yours and that is delineated by essentially that line that you draw in the sand. I actually agree with that 100%. I do agree that people have a moral right to do that thing. And I think that that has been argued very well, which is a different conversation and topic. But it basically kind of boils back down to our ideas of property and what we own, how ownership is conceptualized and established, right? How do you, in a tabula rasa kind of a way, how do we as people come to own this particular plot of dirt, for example, and what gives us the claim over that, right? So I think we definitely agree on that. I would agree that there is, I wrote this one down, let's see. I would agree that there is a lot of group think that goes on, but I think that that is not limited to the left side. My observation is that on the left we have a lot of groupthink with regards to if you're not towing whatever the virtue signaling party line is as hardcore as the next left person on your other left is doing it, then suddenly, you know, there's all kinds of hullabaloo going on. But then, you know, as much as we kind of have this virtue signaling on the left, I think there is a lot. To be perfectly honest, I do think that there is a lot of racism that I see on the right, and just somebody's probably going to hate me for saying it, but in the most simple terms, that whole sort of classic stereotype redneck mentality, you know, a lot of tribalism and them people coming here taking our land and doing this and that and the other thing, right? So I don't think that group think is limited. I think the topics that we experience it on are different on the different sides, and I would go so far as to say that my opinion on why that happens as powerfully as it seems to, I don't know how old you are, but I feel like the black and white division in society has only become more pronounced over the course of my life, not less pronounced. And I really attribute that to this paring down of everything to being us and them, one or the other. You're with us or you're against us. You know, this sort of false dichotomy all the time with absolutely everything, stripping nuance out of everything. And then people just kind of run around screaming party lines, you know, not really thinking about those. And it doesn't really matter which party you're in. I really find that type of thought quite dangerous. And speaking to that, actually, quite randomly, there was a friend of mine had a thread here on Facebook just today. I had just scrolled right past this, and I'll have to go find the link on Amazon, but somebody in this, it was a recommend books to me to read, you know, and a bunch of people had thrown in these recommendations, and one of the guys in this thread threw out this recommendation for a book which I'd never heard of, but I looked it up on Amazon today just to see, but it actually speaks directly to the topic of the United States coming to be divided into basically a segment of people that are very well equipped to deal with highly detailed, nuanced, complicated situations, and then the other half of people which tend to perceive everything in the media black and white. And this is the premise of that book, and I actually thought I'd just throw that out there because it looked like a really interesting read. And so even the guy was being kind of a dick about it on the thread, but it still looked like an interesting read, so I might go check that out. So I feel like now that we've gone back and forth a couple of times here, that maybe both of us are not using the best verbiage to talk about this issue. of immigration, because when you say that the Democrats are morally wrong, I when I hear the context that you're saying that in, what I actually am coming to a conclusion of is that I perceive what you're saying as being more that there is a hypocrisy that exists. And I I would agree with that, that there does seem to be quite a hypocrisy with, well, why weren't you complaining about this under Obama? So I want to take a second to say that, you know, yes, everything, I agree with everything you've said, that, you know, and that some of people have said in the comments as well, that these problems, you know, of people leaving, they're coming here, leaving their own countries because there's crappy situations going on and drug cartels and all this stuff going on in their own countries. And then people in the comments are saying, yes, but the reason that that exists is because our country went in there and effed it all up to begin with and created these terrible situations in the countries, and now those people are coming here, and now we have some kind of a duty or responsibility to them. And I really want to separate that out, that whole chain of this because, you know, just infinite regression, essentially. Because I think that discussing the how and whys these things came to be is important, and definitely has its own weight factor for consideration. It is different. It is a different discussion to me if we're going to discuss the politics of how and why. This is a whole different discussion on whether or not the way that people are currently being handled is something we should be doing as a country. If we're doing it the way that is you know, the best way that we can do, and ethical, and not trespassing the human rights of other people, regardless of whether or not they're citizens. You know, they still are people, and human rights don't know the boundaries, essentially, of a country. Those exist by virtue of people existing as people, not as Americans or Canadians or whatever, you know. And so I think that those are two different issues, and I don't like to see them conflated, right? And I think they can be discussed entirely separately. They should be, really. I don't think that Democrats or anybody on the left are wrong to argue that the status of how the situation is being handled is highly questionable. I would say, you know, at best, I think it is pretty questionable. I think it's, you know, looking at this whole thing, I mean, do we really need to? I don't know. I said a lot of it in my last video, so you kind of know. It's like, you know, do we really need to shoot ourselves in the foot? The way we're handling some of this, is it actually the most efficient and least burdensome way to everybody, Americans included, as far as taxes and everything are concerned? So I would like to say, with regards to the hypocrisy, though, that I'm unconvinced, and this is probably straight up because I myself would fall into this boat, but I'm unconvinced that until this got blown out of proportion, because, you know, the left is always on Trump about something, right? Not that they shouldn't be, it's just that, you know, they're constantly looking for anything that they possibly can to exploit as far as making a headline out of it. I didn't know about the immigration thing under Obama. I didn't know any of that was occurring or happening at all until this whole thing now, with everything going on under Trump. So to some degree, you know, I guess it would appear hypocritical if suddenly, you know, I'm out there going, God, this is a really terrible thing. Why are we doing this? And then somebody says, well, why weren't you concerned about it under Obama? Well, the answer to that is quite simple, because I didn't know about it, right? You can't be concerned about what you have literally zero knowledge of. So with regards to that, I don't think that it's hypocritical for people to suddenly start caring about something when they finally do become aware of it. It doesn't matter in the course of seeing humane and just treatment of other people when it is that a person, a group, whatever, changes their mind on that topic or becomes aware of it and realizes that a different course of dealing with something should be taken, maybe that something is really not right and there's a better way to do it. It doesn't matter if previously under Obama nobody said anything about that. Even if they did know, at some point when you recognize the wrong, then correcting your action is always the right thing to do, regardless of when that happens, right? Maybe it takes people a while to, by the way, I have like 5% battery left, so if I die, that's what happened. You know, it's never terrible to correct things that you're doing and set a truer course, right? You know, even if that makes you a little bit of a hypocrite, it is better that you be a little bit of a hypocrite, but then straighten it out and fix it, right? Than to not do that at all, just so that you can say, I never have changed my mind about something. So, but that's what kind of what I perceive is that it's more about this strange hypocrisy that's going on, as opposed to a rightness or a wrongness on the left or the right. Let's see. I think though that those are the things that I mostly wrote down that I can recall off the top of my head from your video. Thank you for responding. I really appreciate it. I really feel bad that I don't have a more organized way to have put my thoughts down and presented them, because I'm kind of out in the middle of the woods. By the way, the woods are very beautiful. I'm going to show them to you guys before I go. Look at this. I mean, these trees are amazing. So, yeah. Anyway, have a good night, everybody. Tomorrow is Nathan Brendan Masters, and thank you for listening. Please leave your comments and thoughtful conversation in the comment section below, and I will see you all probably next week. So, good night.